go and to talk about things and to begin that and work towards that healing. That's so important. You heard Dr. mention the Kingsmen, which is a group out of Philadelphia that ministers to men, that informs and encourages men's groups to form. You might have heard and seen throughout our diocese that we have the Into the Wild retreats. That is from the Kingsmen. The Kingsmen actually put that on. And we don't have any Kingsmen's group right now in our diocese, but if you'd like more information about that, Deacon Kurt Lucas could certainly point you in that direction. And I encourage you, men, if next October we should have our next Into the Wild retreat, if you'd like to come experience that, it's a wonderful time in which we dive into, you know, and basically forming fellowship with men and forming those bonds together. You know, in the woods. You know, the joke is that, you know, Into the Wild, it's usually they're in these state parks, and you know, and you're kind of roughing it, in maybe tents or things like that. But you come to Kalamazoo, and Into the Wild is at Rhoda, which is a beautiful Boy Scout camp, and we have plumbing, and we have all these things, and so they call it Into the Mild. You know, so it's but it's like I said, it's a great time for men fellowship to just get together and see that there's a bunch of guys that are trying to live out their faith, and they're all at different spots. You know, and that's okay. That's exactly where we encounter God, and so it's a really good retreat. So I encourage you to look into that as it comes forth. To bring this full circle, that's where I first met Steve 2 years ago. He brings a group over from Detroit, and again, the men experience this retreat. And it's just a wonderful time. So, enough of me talking. Beth and Steve, please welcome them.
Thanks. Well, as Tim said, my name's Steve, and this is my wife, Beth. And I'm a recovering sex addict. You know, I came to, in our marriage, I thought that would solve the problem, which of course it didn't, and you know, we came to the Catholic Church asking for help, and at the time when we were going through the issues that we were going through, there was really no help out there from a Catholic perspective, which actually kind of led us away from the church a little bit, and luckily through a lot of prayer and a lot of work and a lot of getting to know our Lord a little bit more, we came back to the church, and in my heart, and actually in my wife's heart as well, was the initiative to start the My House group, which is actually a group based out of Kansas City by Sam and Beth Meyer, and they started this initiative. And so, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We took their program and brought it into the Archdiocese of Detroit through Our Lady Good Counsel. It works extremely well. And actually it's an evangelization tool as well, because where the Catholics were being picked off and going to the Protestant churches for these types of programs, now we're starting to bring some of those Protestants back into the Catholic Church, because I have a lot of men that aren't Catholic that are coming in. I actually have one that's actually now going through RCIA because of the program as well. So there's a lot of benefits, there's a lot of healing that I see. Basically, the My House initiative from the men's standpoint, and Beth will talk about her group, which we keep completely separate. It's a safe, confidential place where men can come and talk about their issues of sexual addiction, issues with pornography, issues with affairs, issues that can range all aspects of the addiction process. And it's a safe, confidential place. We provide discipleship, fellowship. We work through a book which for the men is called, through Mark Lasser, it's called the Recovery Guide, the Life Guide, Living in Freedom Every Day. And what's nice about this book is we register our group through this book. And if somebody's struggling and they go on the internet and they Google in, need help with pornography, ours is the #1 group that shows up. So I get guys that have never even heard of our church that come into our program. I have guys coming from all over the area, the Detroit area, and Monroe, and farther. Actually, Beth has women come from Petoskey, and so it draws a wide range of people from pretty far away. The group is, based on this book, it basically walks you through on how to do a program. So I kind of walked in, and you basically just follow what the book has planned for you. So it's very easy to kind of start a group like this. And what Tim said about the Kingsmen, which I think is great as well, because a My House initiative is kind of throwing it right into your face. This is what this program, or this is what this group is all about. From a Kingsmen perspective, you're looking at it from the perspective of, what is a Catholic man or what is a Christian man? Leader, provider, protector. So you bring men in kind of in that premise. These issues do come up, and it's kind of a softer way to kind of bring men into a group and talk about these issues that may not have come into a group like My House. The people that come into a group like My House are kind of, they're at the end of their marriage. It's kind of on a shoestring right now, and they're desperate. They're kind of, at the bottom of the barrel looking for any sort of hope, and that's what we kind of provide. And I want to have Beth talk about her group, and then, I want to kind of keep it short so we can answer any questions that you may have about the group as well.
When I was praying one morning, I came across the scripture from 2 Corinthians 1:4, where it says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those in their afflictions with the same comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." And after reading that scripture, I had been in groups before, early on in our marriage when I first found out this was going on, and that just really hit my heart that I just really felt the Lord was asking us to start something where we could help the people that have been in the same position that we were, and and it's a day-to-day struggle as well, and just offer that love and support to those that are going through this. So that kind of led me into, okay, why start a support group for spouses? And a lot of times you might hear if someone comes to you and they say, "Oh, my husband's struggling with this," they may think, well, he's the one with the problem. Shouldn't he be the one getting help? I don't want to put any time into this. He's lucky that I'm even here. And they'll say things like that. And so I think that kind of shows, first of all, just how traumatizing and how upsetting it is. You're madly in love with your husband and you find out that he's into pornography or going to strip clubs or, whatever the acting out behavior is, and it's very devastating. But I think the nice thing about having a group and somewhere to support with is that through just hearing about what happened and where our husbands have been, a lot of times it causes us to go into behaviors that we ourselves aren't proud of. I know in Scripture it says that it's okay to be angry, but don't sin in your anger. But that's a kind of a hard thing to do when it's just so bundled up inside of you. And so, this gives a place where you can go and you can, tell the Lord, you can tell each other kind of, wow, I'm really angry in my heart, this is what is going on, but that we want to respond instead of react to our spouses. It's a group where we can share resources, where we can cry, and actually often we're laughing as well too. So, really the group is there, we pray for one another. The women all kind of, come in from different areas, and obviously when you first come into the group, it's a little scary. You don't know what to expect. But really, what I love about the Life Workbook and the My House, which of course is after Joshua 24:15, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord," is that it is a Christ-centered, Christ-based group. So we want to pull on His strength. And as I think everybody in here knows, that through suffering also comes great growth. And so if we can just provide a place where people can come and share their hearts and know that when we turn to Christ in this, that He can bring something good out of it. I probably would not have thought that. I would say that there was a gift in this for me 15 years ago when I found this out. But there's absolutely no doubt that I can say now that there has been a gift in this, because I was a nominal Catholic when I found out about this. And if anything can bring you to your knees, it's thinking that your whole life is going to just kind of dissipate and shatter. So, through this, I was really able to turn to the Lord. My husband and I were able to really have more of a true intimacy. I put him up on a pedestal. He was my knight in shining armor. Nobody belongs there but the Lord. And so I learned kind of where I need to place my heart, and he could be more real. You know, nobody can live under kind of those circumstances where you're walking on eggshells wanting to be this knight in shining armor. So I think through that, the group, we do retreats for the women. Once a year we'll go away for a night. We'll have adoration, we'll have prayer. Again, there's women that are not Catholic that come to the group as well. And it's just nice just to be able to share and to pray together, and just keep each other accountable. We have to be as accountable as the men do. You know, are we nagging? Are we going to our counseling? Are we, you know, if we're really stuck in a ridge, are we seeking the therapy that we need to kind of get out of this wall that we've come around? And we share resources. We've heard of this good group, this good intensive, this good counselor that does phone counseling even though he's in out of state. And so that's pretty much what the group is about. One more thing. So I just thought that Socorro and I were talking last night how well this led into the Year of Mercy. And so we were both kind of, I guess, excited in a way, just the timing of things. And I think more people are becoming aware. I mean, there's only a few groups actually in the United States that are secular that deal with this, that are Catholic, I mean. And so I just think of the words of the Pope where he says, any efforts at reform or renewal of the Catholic Church that do not place God's mercy at the center of the work are useless. And then he goes on to say, and only a merciful church shines. And I just wanted to end with that because I just love that, because I believe that that's what this group is about. God has showed me his mercy through this, and you know, through the men's group as well.
Yeah, the men's group it's based on the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program, and using the book by Mark Lasser, it's taking those 12 steps into 7 principles. But from the secular standpoint, the 12 steps, your higher power can be anything. It can be your accountability partner, your sponsor, it could be that chair. For us in our group, it's Christ, and so that's what draws us together. And that's what draws us all together as Christian brothers in our group, whether they're Catholic or not. And it's a strong bond. Just like Pope Francis says, the church now is a field hospital, and we're called to be, ministering to people where they're at. Before I can bring them Christ, I got to reach them where they're at, where they're hurting, kind of come alongside them, kind of be there for them, get them back up on their feet. And at that point, then I can introduce Christ to them. Christ is the key to recovery. But before I can introduce Christ to them, I have to kind of come alongside them. And that's what this group does as well. And that's what Beth does for the women that have been hurt by this, the spouses that have been hurt by this, the trauma that we've caused our wives. My wife, takes care of the women from that side as well, so they don't feel alone, because they don't have anywhere to go. They don't want to tell their family. They don't want to tell their friends. They feel isolated. They feel alone. So, the Beth group is a great kind of alternative to go and feel where they are welcome, that they can bring these things out and they're not alone in this situation. This issue, you can't do it on your own. And Dr. Kalponis, I'm sure, has talked to you about that already. This cannot be done on your own. You can't pray your way out of this. You can't, you can go to confession, that's great, but the sacraments are essential, for this as well. But on top of that, you need to have somebody come alongside you and guide you through the process of recovery. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. And the church is now a field hospital that we need to bring these men in, because this is now an epidemic. Everyone in your parish is probably dealing with this. And it's funny because, our church, I don't get many guys from my church, but I get guys from every other church come to our group. So that's why I'm trying to spread it out. And the nice thing is now I have other guys in our group that are now starting to seed other churches, some other parishes that, we have 2 groups from St. Thomas Apostolate in Ann Arbor, from our group that started a group out there. So that's my heart. I want to get parishes to open or start these programs, whether it be a My House initiative or the softer side, which is a Kingsmen, which is, kind of, building what was true Catholic manhood back into the church. And through that, these issues will come up and they can bring these things out. Into the Wild Retreat here in Kalamazoo, I have a good friend of mine that's in our group that it's called the God's Love Bus. We pack it in guys and we come here to Kalamazoo and we have a phenomenal time. That's where I met Deacon Lou and Deacon Dave that were there, Deacon Kurt that kind of ran it this last year. It's a phenomenal program, and I highly recommend, because at that program is where, and it wasn't here in Kalamazoo, but it was another Kingsman retreat where I had a 14-year-old going up on this campfire saying he's completely addicted to pornography, that it's ruined his life, and telling the 11-year-olds not to get involved in this. That opened my eyes up to how pervasive this really is, and how young these kids are getting involved in this pornography. It's an epidemic that needs to be stopped, and we're hoping to kind of, battle on the front lines, and so that's why we're here.
Another thing is we do not have a group for females, but I'm finding I often get phone calls from, and it seems like more the younger 20-year-olds and stuff, females that are struggling with this as well. And it's real, and unfortunately I feel so bad because I feel like I'm in the same position as when I went to the church 15 years ago, crying and saying, please, is there someone to help me? And they really didn't have anybody. I'm sitting here and saying, I know there's books, I know there's counseling, I mean, I can give them that, but if you know of any younger people that have had some success in overcoming this, and even the females that are struggling too, just to kind of keep that in mind. Anymore, it's just so pervasive and it's so easy to access that it's not just young men and husbands and fathers that are struggling with this too. So,
let me just open up to now to questions. If you have any questions about the group or how it functions, or my heart is if there's somebody in your parish, it's typically, I think, having the lay ministry run the program. And having, the support from our pastor, Father John Ricardo has been a huge support of ours. And, I give him a quarterly report of what goes on, how the group is going. But, from this, he's pretty much out of it. We basically run it. Having the lay ministry run these types of programs, I think, is essential.
And then for my group, I have the associate pastor who is married. He's the lay associate pastor who is really just, we need something. He makes sure that we have a spot that's confidential, that is not in a high traffic area. He makes sure that we're just really protected. He really is very protective of our group and has just offered us just a world of support.
We have, basically cards that we have at the confessionals. I put them in the bathrooms, both the men's and the women's bathrooms. And it basically links you to for us, it's my house at olgc.net, so ourladygoodcounsel.net, and that goes directly to me. I answer it confidentially to the person and let them know, what the group's about. I typically meet them ahead of time, and then, we meet kind of off-site. We actually meet at the parish office off hours, and so we have the whole, office to ourselves. So it's safe, it's confidential. From the church's standpoint, we're known as a prayer group. That's us, and so we keep it very, very safe and confidential. And so the men feel safe. They have to feel safe in order for them to kind of open up and be honest.
How long has your group been meeting?
My group has been meeting about 4.5 years.
I've been about 3.5.
How often do you meet?
Once a week.
And is the book what guides your conversation, and then you just
Correct,
keep cycling,
yeah.
You keep cycling through?
Yeah, so what's nice about the book is that there's 7 principles, which is based on the 12 steps. What's nice is you have principle 1 through 7, and then you cycle back to principle 1 again, but there's actually 4 different exercises. So principle 1, assignment 1, all the way to principle 7, assignment 7, then you go to principle 1, assignment 2. And so what the nice part is that no matter where you are coming into the group, we're always going to cycle back to step 1, which is, I can't do this on my own.
And one last question, do folks graduate from this, or it's more like kind of a 12-step group where...
Yeah, it's interesting. I have guys that will show up one time and never come back. I have guys I have a core group of guys that continue to come back, and I see amazing results. I have one guy that has 7 years sobriety and continues to come. And so it depends on what you're looking at, what you're working on. For me, you know, as a recovering sex addict, can Christ take this away from me? Absolutely. He can take it away tomorrow. For me, it's kind of like that thorn in my side. It's always going to be there. I'm always, I think Dr. Koponis will say it's a lifestyle. And so for me, I've accepted that. And for me, that just, what I need is I need Christ every day. So if it took, I think if he took it away from me tomorrow, I'd be my own God. I wouldn't need God. You know, at least for me, I have to rely on him every day. And that's, I actually see it as a blessing and not as a hindrance. And so it's more of a lifestyle. And so I have guys that will come once, guys that will stay and never leave. But there's really no graduation.
For the women, it's a little different. We've gone through the life workbook. We supplement sometimes if someone hears a message of hope or a video or a good sermon, you know, we might play that. You know, a few of the women come early and pray the rosary, so you can kind of modify it to what you want to. For some of the women, you know, it's good, it's a place to vent and to, actually, we don't like to just vent, but to share Christ and to be able to get our anger out, get our emotions out, and be real and authentic. But sometimes it's kind of traumatizing if you're getting to a good place to hear these stories over and over again. So some women, although I found the ones that do the best, stick with it, and I've had for 3-4 years coming to the group. But some of the women say sometimes, you know what, I'm in a good place, my husband and I are doing well, and right now I'm going to do this group instead. I'll still continue with my counseling and maybe touch base in weekly. So for the women, it might be a little bit different. But, you know, again, we all need to kind of keep working on ourselves.
So I guess the men that, for me, that graduate, start other programs.
How do you deal with, you say you're known as a prayer group, how do you deal with people that just want to be part of a prayer group? If they call and say, oh,
well,
my
you know,
prayer group.
typically, you know, they're the ones that come into the, it's very, it's a private prayer group. And so in order to come into the prayer group, you have to kind of meet with me. And so, you know, we kind of, I've never had somebody come and say, hey, you know, I don't have this issue, but I want to come in and be a part of your group. So it's basically guys that are kind of on they're basically have nowhere else to go, you know, and those are the guys I meet with.
Well, how do they even know to come to you?
I was just going to say that we don't advertise as a women's prayer group or a men's prayer group. We have flyers that Sephora has in the back. And if you went to Our Lady at olgc.net, I believe is our parish website, we have a support group tab and up pops our flyers. So our flyers are very descriptive, but they don't give the time or the location. And so on our church calendar, just to reserve the spot, it may say just confidential group or private group meeting, just to reserve the space. But we advertise as what we are. And you could take a look at the flyers if you wanted to get an idea for yourself. I know a group in Louisiana started, and she, you know, took a lot of our brochures, but she calls hers Healing Hearts. And, you know, you can adapt it. There's another group I know that's is something based on, you know, the Heart of Mary or something like that. So, but I actually have had some women that are like, oh, you guys are meeting, what are you doing? I'd like to join. I'm like, I really don't want to join this group. But we always say that these are the best friends we never wanted to have, and you know, I'm very grateful for them.
There's just two flyers here, but we can send us some more.
Yeah,
It does at the top, it says support healing for those whose relationships have been affected by pornography and sexual addiction. So right at the top, it does state that.
And what's nice too, like I said before, the group, by registering our group in this book, and you go on the internet looking for help with pornography, ours is the first group that pops up, which is great, because I've had probably 6 or 7 guys that have come to our group that, you know, only found it because they searched it on the internet, and ours was the first group that popped up. So we're getting, I mean, it's great advertising, and not that we look to advertise. It's just, I mean, I have probably, the last time I met, we had 21 guys, and I get calls, probably 3 calls a week for more guys to come in. So and that's without advertising, that I keep getting guys coming in. So it doesn't really need to be advertised all that much to kind of start the process. I started with 2 guys, and now I have 21.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Any broad vision for a solution to the problem?
I think it's, ultimately, I think, there's, and Dr. Kaponos will talk about this, but I think, there's a lot of deep father wounds, and there's a lot of issues that, that could have been sexually abused when they were younger, and there's a lot of issues that go into it. I think, ultimately, it's looking at how do we train our young people to be authentically Catholic men. What it is to be a Catholic man, which is what Kingsmen is all about, is kind of training somebody to be that leader, provider, protector, to not objectify, but to basically protect that woman. And that's what we're called to do, is protect and not objectify. And so the more and more I think we train what it is to be a true Catholic man in the church, I think that's the genesis of this. We need to start training what it is to be truly Catholic and truly a man. And I think we'll start to see some progress.
The way the book or the manual is created, written, does it take a courageous couple like you in a parish to start it up, or?
I would say it is best when it's run by somebody who's been there. Just best when it's run. But the one that I was telling you about in Louisiana, she's a beautiful woman, Margaret Rux. She just has a heart for the Lord. And she said, minister to families. And somehow she got my number and called me. And she's like, well, I was thinking this or that. And I'm like, well, to be honest, I don't see any better way to minister to families than to help them break free of this, because so many couples and so much divorce is going on because of it. And once you have a broken home, it's really easy for Satan to come in. So, she's a lay person, and she's doing beautiful down there. So I won't say that it can't be done. Sometimes it might be better if you have a counselor. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. But we don't have that. So.
Yeah, I think it's, to find somebody that is, that has gone through this. And I approached Father John Ricardo about this, and he goes, run with it. And so I've had some other guys, especially because I've been to SAA and the SA programs, the secular side, and I've known Catholic men that have been in those groups that have approached their priests, and the priest said, we don't need that program here. And so I have guys that have wanted to do it that were kind of turned away, and I think it's, again, you have to have that support from that, the priest, in order to kind of get the programs in there. But there are men out there, there are Catholic men out there that are looking to start these programs.
And I think as more awareness and acceptance of what it is that we're dealing with comes out, there'll be more couples that'll be willing to. 15 years ago, you couldn't pay me $1 million to get up here in front of all of you and talk. So, the more people are aware, the more it's talking about, the more you're like, okay, whatever you want. So, hopefully there'll be more couples that will stand up, or, a man and a woman that are even together.
But if there's somebody in your parish that's possibly interested in doing this, call me. I'd be happy to come. I'd be happy to come alongside that person and give them the tools that needs to start the group and kind of get it going, which it's not that hard.
So how long are your meetings, and when do they meet?
So my group meets on Monday nights. So I meet from basically 7 to 8:30, and I'm very strict. Boom, 8:30, we're done. So I don't linger on beyond that. So they know that this is the time that we meet. We incorporated some other aspects as well, which is, the retreats through the Kingsmen. We do some fellowship nights, especially around the holidays, where, some guys, that's where it gets a little bit more depressing around the holidays. So we'll have these little holiday parties, we'll have a Christmas party, we'll have a Thanksgiving, and it's just a great fellowship. And these men are truly my friends. There's all aspects of the addiction in these men, but we all have a common thread in the addiction, and so that's what kind of draws us together. And that's what the accountability of this group is we're going to call you out. I'm going to love on you, but I'm going to call you out if you're kind of going astray. And so that's the nice part is as well. I can call that person out and kind of bring them back into line, and it's a great process.
Did you notice more activity, more requests once you got your information into the confessional?
Yeah, it was a great, when I started our group, our pastor, Father John Ricardo, actually did a month-long, every homily for a month, every weekend, he did a talk on pornography.
Whoa.
Where he talked about, he says, you may want to, if your kids are too young, you may want to bring them down to the social hall, because we're going to talk about this. And there's families that would take their kids and take them down, but he actually, and it was done very well. It wasn't, it was done in an appropriate way, but he kind of warned the families ahead of time, says you may want to take some of the kids into this is what we're going to be talking about. And he did a month-long, his homilies were geared on this, promoting both my health groups. So, and the confessionals, I'll get a call, from the father, hey, I need more cards, so, I give him another stack of cards for the confessional.
I was a minister of a big parish in Texas for 6 years, and I learned about reclaimed sexual health.
Yes, that's great.
But before that, I haven't had a pastor to let me put him in the bathrooms yet, so that's another story. But I had a pilot from United Airlines come in to see me. And he explained to me that he was addicted. And he told me about a group that the Diocese of Fort Worth had. It's just called a men's purity group that met. And he said, do you think the priest, we had different priests coming in for everything. Do you think they would like one of these and these available in the confessional? I said, well, I'm going to put them in anyway. I'm not going to ask them. I'm just telling you there. And every priest, the first time he saw them, said thank you 18 times. He says, we don't know what to do when it comes, and it's coming more and more and more.
Well, I think, and that's where Dr. Kolponis is really going to be a benefit to the Archdiocese, because with his Restored Integrity Network, the Archdiocese is going to have that information that the priest will have, that when somebody comes with this type of issue, he'll have the resources to give out. Because you're exactly right. I think the issue is our priests and our deacons don't have the resources at their fingertips to give to that person.
Well, what happened, I asked him, I said, well, can I give people your name and number? Oh, not yet, not yet. He said, my wife we're dealing with it, and da-da-da-da-da. And the other thing he said is, it got worse and worse as the videos got more professional. Because every time he was on an overnight flight, and over the years they got better. But he came back in a month. He came back in a month and said, you can give my name now.
And what I'm seeing, because I have a lot of younger men that come into our group, and what I'm seeing is that, they get it, it's like crack cocaine. You see it once and you become addicted. But the pornography, it's just like going from marijuana to heroin. You want a higher and higher high, and so the pornography is becoming more violent. Yeah. And so you're seeing these younger men that are seeing more and more violent pornography, and seeing that that's the way you're supposed to treat a woman, and which is, it's really warped, our senses, and it's hard for my wife to come out here to Kalamazoo as we're driving down I-94 and seeing every single massage parlor sign and strip clubs on the way out here. It hurts her, and I know it hurts her. It hurts me because I'm the one that participated in that.
I pray a lot.
Yeah. So it's
really dark glasses.
It's something that it's so pervasive. I mean, and Dr. Post talks about it's these kids are 8, 11 years old, and they're getting into this, and it's ruined their lives at 14. It's something that needs to be dealt with. And I think the church, like Pope Francis has said, we're a field hospital. We have to administer to the population that's being affected, which is a large population is affected by this. Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just think hats off to you for having the guts to stand up there and talk to us. It is amazing what you're doing here. Thank you.
For me, it's kind of that catch-22. I wish I didn't deal with what I dealt with. But, with the way my wife responded to my addiction was the first time that I saw Christ's mercy. A lot of these guys don't see that they can be forgiven for what they've done. They feel unlovable, they feel worthless, they feel failures because of this addiction. And, my wife, the way she responded, made me want to respond in an appropriate way to kind of stand up. And the more and more I learn about my faith, the more and more I want to fight this and get other men to understand that thank God for the year of mercy. Thank God for the U.S. bishops to come out with that paper on pornography. I thought that was phenomenal. And they promote the Kingsmen. They promote, the My House Initiative. These things need to be brought out, and I'm glad that the U.S. bishops has finally kind of come alongside this issue because it's devastating. That's why you're seeing the church, the pews starting to, be less and less with the amount of people because this is an issue that they feel that they can't go to the church. I have a lot of guys that came in that haven't gone to a confession in 50 years, that haven't stepped into a church in 50 years because they felt that they were unworthy to go into a church. And to have that guy go to confession, break down and cry, and then go to Mass for the first time in 50 years is what draws me back every week to this group. I just see I just see, the grace that abounds that he provides. I step back. I don't do anything. I let him do everything. And the more I step back, the more I see the grace, abound and the healings that happen. I've seen marriages that have come back together that were on the brink of disaster. I've seen men that can hold their head high, and I've seen men that even that they still have issues where they fall once in a while. They're not thrown down into a pit of shame and guilt, that they can stand up and understand that they can accept that mercy that Christ has for us. And thank God for this year of mercy. I think it's just an appropriate time.
Thank you.